Kadosh, Erev Tov, Shiur Lilu Nishmat, Miriam Bat Bela, Shien Nishmata, Tzura B'Tzorah Chaim. Amen. There's a beautiful question on this week's parasha, Parashat Lech Lecha. We know that in this week's parasha, we start with the 10 trials. Yeah? We start with the 10 trials. And the question that we ask ourselves is, which one was the strongest of all the trials? Which one was the strongest of all the tests? Yeah. If you have 10 tests, which one was the best? Which one was the strongest, the hardest? Yeah? You know, you're taking an exam. You're going to say, which exam was the hardest? That's what you're going to ask. So which one do you guys think?
The last one, no?
The last one. So listen to this. Chazal saying Bereshit Rabbah. Bereshit Rabbah, it says, do we know that the Mishnah Pirkei Avot says there were 10 tests that Avraham Avinu was tested? And says in Bereshit Rabbah, Ma Rabbi Levi bar Haita, Shene pe'amim ketiv lech lecha. It says twice in the Torah, lech lecha. Go for yourself. One of them in our parasha, lech lecha me'artzecha, go from your land. And the second one, lech lecha in Eretz Amoriyah. Va'aleu sham le'olah ala chade'arim asher lecha. Akedat Yitzchak. Says the Midrash, En ani yodim eze mechaviva, im harishona or shniya. I don't know which one is stronger. The first one or the last one? Lech lecha le'eretz Amoriyah, right? Or the first one, which is lech lecha le'eretz Amoriyah. So he comes and he says, when it says lech lecha le'eretz Amoriyah, that's the most chaviv. That's more chaviv. So therefore, the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, he's going to ask the following question. What's the Havamina?
What's that?
Havamina. Not Ma'avdel. It's a Havamina. Yeah, the exact opposite of what Ma'avdel. What's the Havamina means? Ma the Havamina is, right? What's the Havamina means, right? That Ma Havamina means is that right now, when you have, do you have a doubt? I'm going to ask you right now, what is stronger? You're going to tell me what's
What?
slaughtering your own child or coming and leaving your country?
What kind of question is that?
What type of question is it? What's that? What does that mean? The Midrash has a doubt that all of a sudden now the Midrash has to say, you know what? The one of slaughtering your child, that's a stronger one. That's what that's what what's going on? Shh. So he comes and he says like this. He says, really, Be'emet, right? The Or HaChaim HaKadosh asks this question, and the Or HaChaim HaKadosh comes and he says, how can we even come and even put them on the same status quo? It doesn't even make sense. But rather he comes and he says, how do we answer this up? He says it's with Rav Elyashiv. Listen to the chidush that Rav Elyashiv says. Rav Elyashiv says, as the Gemara Mesechet Sukkah. The Gemara Mesechet Sukkah says, in the future, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come and he's going to do shechita to the Yetzer Hara. But he's going to do to the shechita, to the evil inclination, for the tzaddikim and for the reshaim. He says, do you know that for the tzaddikim, it's going to look like a big mountain. And for the reshaim, it's going to look like a small hair. So imagine, they're going to come, the tzaddik is going to take his Yetzer Hara, shechita. It's going to look like a mountain, a montaña. The rasha is going to come, also going to do shechita. But the shechita of the little tiny hair. You're done. So he says everybody's crying. Why is everybody crying? The tzaddikim are crying because they were saying to themselves, how could we have conquered this mountain? It's impossible. And the reshaim are crying because they're saying, how can we not have conquered this? This is a small little tiny hair. How can we not conquer it? So he says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is also asking, right? Why? Because he says, what's going on? So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yosef, the reason why is because of the Yetzer Hara at the beginning, he's a small little tiny thin hair. But then afterwards he becomes like the big, we're going to say the wheels of big chariots. I don't know if you've ever seen the 18-wheelers, right? The big, huge wheels. That's how it becomes. So Rabbi Elyashiv comes and he says, right, like this. He says, what's the duma? What's the example? This happens all the time with teenagers. Yeah, a teenager comes. Yeah, a teenager comes and they're going to ask him, do you know this cigar, right, or this weed tastes incredible with black coffee? Yeah, incredible with black coffee. Yeah, you heard it. Tastes incredible with black coffee. So what happens is that the person might come and say, you know what? Okay, he's going to taste it. He's going to say, you know what? It's what? You know, the first time that he wants to go for it. He says the second that he goes for it, the first time, what happens? Lost case. Kaddish. He's gone. If he knows how to say no, then yes. He's got the future. If he does not know how to say no the first time around, he loses everything. Now, why is that? Because says Rabbi Yashi something incredible. And he says like this. He says, every single time that we have a test and we pass the test, what does that do? It gives us strength to pass even a bigger test. It gives us strength to pass the one that's after it. And therefore he comes and he says, so therefore as follows. He says, if you're going to ask a person what's stronger, the lech lecha of slaughtering your own child, or, right, the lech lecha which is going to be of leaving your own home country, obviously the one of slaughtering your child is much stronger. But what gave you the power and the strength to overcome that? The first one. Because every single one helped you for the next one. Meaning if you didn't pass the first test, you can't pass the second test. It's like going after right now for your master's. If you didn't get your bachelor's, you can't get your master's. Right? So the same thing. What you have to first do is you have to go step by step. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu gives you the first step. And you won. And when you overtook and you won the first step, now you're able to come and you're able to continue with the second step and third step and fourth step. So therefore, that's why the Gemara is asking. Because it's not saying in the time of a trial, you're right. Obviously, if somebody's going to slaughter his own child, that's the highest one. But it was only due because of the first one. And that's why the Gemara is asking, which one is the most powerful one? Is it the first one? Was the first one was a catalyst to get to the next one and to continue going in order to help you to surpass the last one? You're going to say it's the last one in itself. The Gemara says, the Midrash says, yes, it's the last one. But we do have to understand what was the Havamina, which means what was the prior thought. It was because since this brought it about, so that's why it gave us, right, such a strength. That's what's so important, right, about this. That's why I think it's actually something very, very beautiful. Why? He comes and he says, because many times it happens that somebody wants to come, a rabbi wants to come and he tells you, come to a shiur. And I'm telling you, you know, if they made a book, right, the book of excuses, right, is this big, this thick, right? You know about the dog ate my homework. Somebody said, I have to take out my dog. I told you never had a dog. Ah, no, you're right. It's my neighbor's, right? You continue going. And every single time you come and you tell them, okay, fine. Why don't you come and no, I'm too tired. I just came home from work. I'm too exhausted. So what does he say? Okay, fine. Come tomorrow morning. Okay, fine. I'll come tomorrow morning. What time is tomorrow morning? He says, no, you come in the morning. And then what happens? Because I've heard every sit. I just heard it. Coke zero. That's an excuse. What does that mean? That means, right? That means that there's a Yetzer Hara. And the Yetzer Hara wants to tell us, don't come to a shiur. You know why? Because the second that you come to shiur once, you're going to come twice, a third time, and you're going to win. The Yetzer Hara doesn't want you to come once. Because once you come once, he lost. So he's not going to let you. He's not going to let you come once. And that's why his fight is so strong. So therefore, what happens is that at the beginning, that's the biggest fight. And therefore, the Yetzer Hara comes and he's fighting so much. I don't want you to come. The second that you've done once, and then a second time, and then that's it. You've already had it.
The first shiur, do you weaken the Yetzer Hara?
Of course. Once you go into the first shiur, you've already won. And now you're going to continue coming. Because once you come once, the Yetzer Hara is already in your hands, and therefore you already won. And there's nothing else what to do. Fine. That was just the beginning, right? For us just to understand what it is, the greatness of Lech Lecha in this week's parasha, and how it is that we always have to win the Yetzer Hara. And then once you start learning once, you'll never stop. Because once you start seeing the beauty of the Torah, how beautiful it is, and that the Torah encompasses everything. Think about it. The Chazon Ish, she was able to come and teach doctors how to do surgery in the brain. When they went and they asked the Chazon Ish, they asked about the Chazon Ish, which university did he go to? He says the person never went to a university. He never stepped into a secular place in his life. So they went and they said, how could he teach us, the doctors, right, and the surgeons, how to do surgery on the brain if he never went to university? And the answer is because everything's in the Torah. You don't need that, right? And that's why it's the greatness of it. they say about Mordechai Eliyahu alav Shalom when he actually passed away. Right before he passed away, he had a very, very complex surgery. Right towards the end of his life. What happened was that towards the end of his life, when he had this surgery, right, what happened was that they went and they said, the doctors went and they testified. They said, I don't understand what happened. We went into the surgery and we felt that we weren't controlling our hands, as if our hands were doing a surgery, but we weren't in control. Our hands were just moving, and we weren't controlling our hands. Why? Because the Kodesh Baruch Hu was one that put it in there. We're already talking about Mordechai Eliyahu. Mordechai Eliyahu, we were going to mention this last night, that Mordechai Eliyahu, what happened was when he passed away, the Rabbanit, she went and they said when he was in the hospital towards the end of his life and he was very, very sick, all of a sudden what happened is that he left the hospital, right, in the middle. He was sick in bed. He got up with his last strength. He went to Kever Rachel, and then he went back. And they asked, why did he go crying to Kever Rachel? And the reason why is because, and this was last night, we just finished. Today was the Nachala, the Yortzeit Askara of Rachel Imenu. And the reason why is because the IDF, Israel went into the Gaza. And what happened is that there was a lot of problems going on because there was a lot of booby traps, right? By the way, you should know that when Zaka, the person should have refuah shlema. I forgot his name. Get out his name, right? I don't know, but to get out his name, do you have the name or not? The head of one of the heads of Zaka. What happened is that when he went into the south, into all these places, what happened is he was working for all these days, and he said there was something incredible. The way that they did it is that they purposely came. His name is Mordechai Aaron ben Goldna. So what happened is that he was they were going house to house. He said the rule was that always the soldiers had to go in first. And only when everything was clear did they come in, and they had to take care of all the deceased. And he said it was something incredible with the booby traps that they did, that they put rimonim, they put grenades on the door handles. So therefore, if somebody was going to come now and open the door, what happens? It falls and boom, and it triggers and it kills them as well. They said they left a little bit open the doors, and on top of the door, when the door is a little bit open, grenades all over the place. So that way it would come and just inflict more wounds and kill more and more people, right, when they were coming inside, just to show you. So what happened was that Mordechai Eliyahu, when he went to Kever Rachel to pray, and then, right, what happened is that the Rabbanit went and she said that the reason why he went to pray is because later on they realized that there was a woman dressed all in black, that every single time, all of a sudden, she would come out of a house, right? And she would tell them, don't go in here. And at the beginning, right, she had obviously the snoot and everything she had. So they thought that it was an Arab woman. They tried to even come and to even shoot at her. They weren't able to shoot at her. It was just impossible. So they come and they said, don't go in here. And they're like, but why not? It says it's booby trapped. Right? They moved back. They pushed one thing in, boom, the entire thing blew up. Right? And they were saved. Now the same woman came out of a few houses. And they kept on saying, something's wrong. So finally, one of the soldiers, that he was the head of the soldiers, he asked her, what's your name? What was her answer? Rachel. Right? She didn't say Imenu. She said Rachel. But Rachel, what does that mean? It was something incredible. So obviously he went and he said, this is what with Mordechai Eliyahu, just the entire concept, right? Just as the zechut of Rachel Imenu. We're going to continue. I'm going to share with you guys a beautiful shiur, which is going to be the Or HaChaim HaKadosh on Parashat Lech Lecha. We know that when we're talking about Lech Lecha, we are going to ask ourselves that obviously we had the 10 different trials. What was the first trial, right, that Avraham Avinu passed? What was the first trial? Did it start in this week's parasha? No, but that's this week's parasha. What already started from last week's parasha?
No.
Noach. The Maftir of Noach. Right before the Maftir of Noach. What was the Nisayon Arishon shel Moshe shel Avraham Avinu? No. Nisayon Arishon was Ur Kastim. He was thrown in a fiery furnace by Nimrod. That was last week's parasha. At the end of last week's parasha, it's written that Haran died al penei terach aviv. Why did Haran die on the face of his father? Because Haran wanted to try to play the same game as Avraham Avinu. And therefore he went and he said, I'm also going to come in. And then what happened? When Avraham Avinu went into the fire, he was just walking around as if nothing happened. Right? He said it's actually a little bit hot in here, just put on the AC. Right? But he didn't he felt nothing. But when they threw in Haran, he was burnt alive. So therefore, obviously, what happened was it was a real fire. So what happened is that we ask ourselves, I don't understand. If right now you're going to tell me that the second test and every test should go up gradually, which means that you have the first test, second test should be a little bit harder, third test should be that's the way it is in everything. You go to exams, the first test, it's a piece of cake, right? It's even a mock. Then it comes and it continues going. Yeah, the cheesecake. Yeah. So what happens? It continues going. So then he comes and he says, yeah, but 1 second.
Famous.
So then what was the test? Imagine right now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to you, God comes to you and he tells you, listen, I want you to go to China. Yeah, but when you're going to go to China, you're going to get money. You're going to get kavod. You're going to get a name. You're going to have children. Is that a test?
No.
It's not a test. So what's a test then? Why in the world would that be a test then? And that's the question. Yeah? So the question that we ask ourselves is, what's going on then? So why is that going to be a test? So the chidush, right? This is asked by who? The Or HaChaim HaKadosh. Or HaChaim HaKadosh comes and he says, there were 10 tests that Avraham Avinu was tested. And then it brings down the Midrash Shochar Tov and Tinim, that when he went down to Kivchan Ha'esh, that was the first one, and the second one was Lech Lecha. And then afterwards it comes and it says, V'yeh bracha, you're going to get bracha and everything. So what's a test then? And that's what asks the Or HaChaim HaKadosh. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh comes and he says, Kol HaKatum Yuta, what's going on then? But rather he comes and he says something incredible. And he says like this. Are you listening? Comes and he says like this. He says, you know what was the test? The test was not that Avraham Avinu was going to go. Because every single one of us was going to go. But you know why was the test? The test was Kasher Diber Elav Hashem. Meaning, when he went, he didn't go not because of the riches, not because of the kavod, not because of the children, not because of nothing. You know why he went? He went because Hashem told him to go. That's the only reason. What's one of the biggest proofs? You know what one of the biggest proofs is? Is that all of a sudden, he was supposed to get all these berachot. But who tagged along with him? Lot. When Lot tagged along with him, he was not going to get anything. But he still went. And he went with Lot. Now, why did he go? And the answer is, because again, he wasn't going to get the reward. He wasn't going to have children. He wasn't going to get rewards, to get a name, you know why he went? Hashem diber elav Hashem. Hashem commanded you to go, you go. I don't care what's going to happen afterwards. I'm doing it for Hashem. I'm not doing it for myself. And that's what the Or HaChaim HaKadosh Kam says. Ki ma she'alach lo letzad ha'aftachot amurot. When Avraham Avinu went, he didn't go because of all the promises that God gave him. Ela la'asot dvar Hashem. He went to fulfill the word of Hashem. Letzad gzerat melech. And not because of anything that was coming afterwards. The Parim Yafot actually comes and he says, and that's what he says, that Avraham Avinu was bitel hanaotav. He annulled any benefits that he was going to have, and he didn't pay attention to nothing that was going on, other than to be mekayem always the ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's why he comes and he says, umatzata et levavo ne'eman lefanecha. Why did he find his heart ne'eman lefanecha? You know why? Because if you're going to come and tell a guy, why are you coming to the Bet Knesset? And they're going to tell you because it was incredible cheesecake. Right? Why, Be'emet? You're coming because there's incredible food from Rutsiko. So now all of a sudden, what's going to happen? So now you're not coming because Hashem wants you to go to Mincha and Arvit. Why? You're not coming now because, you know why you're coming? Because right now you want to enjoy yourself. And therefore, after you enjoy yourself for such a meal, you're going to say, listen, that's the reason why I'm coming. But no. He comes and he says, he was Ne'eman. Was Ne'eman? Only for Hashem, nothing else. And that's why we actually come and we see that this test was even greater than the test of what? Of Ur Kasdim. Because Ur Kasdim, you're dying, but then what's going to happen? What's going to happen after dying is nothing. You finish your life, and that's it. He came and he says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm willing to die for you. They're going to throw me in a furnace, and I'm saying that you are the true God. Throw me in, but you die, and then that's it. What happened though with how do you call this? What happened though with this concept of Lech Lecha? Lech lecha means you're going to travel and you're going to live. But I want to see how many times you're going to think, when am I going to get the bracha? When's the money coming? When's the mullah coming? I'm coming, I'm serving Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm coming 3 times a day. When's the big paycheck coming? I'm waiting. What's going on? He wanted to see him live with that. There's a big difference between living and dying. Dying, a person could die, is very easy. But to live with that the entire time, that's much more difficult. Right? Because that's much more difficult.
60-something years.
100%. Right? That's why, by the way, they actually say about the Nisayon later on, that his Nisayon was greater than of Yitzchak Avinu to pass away. But that's why it comes over here and it says that it's written that he was a Nadiv. Right? What does that mean? The Netivot Shalom, right? The son of he comes and he says that Mor Mislanim comes and he says an incredible yesod. And he says that's the explanation of what we say. What does that mean? You have to love Hashem. You have to love Hashem with everything that you have. Right? With your entire heart. Even if he's going to take away your life, you do it with all your soul. With all your property. How do you love HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all that? You know what that means? That it's not mine. You could be a billionaire and nothing is mine. Everything belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where do we see that? Do you know in Portugal, there was a very famous rabbi. He was actually beforehand in Spain, and then he went to Portugal. This was during the time of the Inquisition, even before the Inquisition, right? But what was his name? His name was Dona Barbenel. The Barbenel, right? What happened with the Barbenel is that what? Which one? Yep. He was first in Spain, then he went to Portugal. What happened was that he was very close ministers to the king. He was also a doctor. He was very, very famous. They went, and the people that were surrounding him, they wanted to go against him. And they went to the king and they told him, we're going to prove to you, that this Abarbanel, he's cheating. He's in charge of the treasury and everything, but he's stealing money from you. He's doing all these things. And when he said, impossible. This guy is a trustworthy person, a trustworthy Jew, impossible. So let's test him. How do you want to test him? So you know we're going to test him. Tell him to make you a IRS form. Yeah? He has to make a report of everything that he owns, everything that he has. Give it to him. Yeah, give it to him. So, okay, fine. He comes to Abarbanel, he tells him, start. So he starts, right? And he gives it to the king. The king comes and he says, I don't understand. Right? He tells the other ministers, you guys are correct. He says, this guy, not only is he lying, he's got a chutzpah, shen kedugmata. Said, well, we told you so. So of course. He says, his house is worth more than what we wrote down. What's he doing? Right? Nowadays, right? In a lot of these, especially nowadays, what's going on with fraud cases, what do they try to do? They try to put that the house is worth 10 times the amount so you could get a bigger loan, right? Or all these different types of things, right? But nowadays, what's going on though? He did the exact opposite, right? He did the exact opposite. What's he doing? He's coming and he's writing it's worth nothing. What's going on? There's a problem here. So what happens? What happened was, right? I see you're very big into the news.
You like your idea.
So much into the news.
You like your idea.
So what happened? So what happens is, right, is that all of a sudden he comes to Abarbanel and they're going to kill him. So they call him in and he says, listen, you have your last words, right? And we're going to kill him. But how do they kill him? We know the famous story. They sent him, right, with his messenger. They sent him to a far-off place because he was very, very well loved, right? Because he used to give a lot of leeways and everything. So what happened was they sent him to a far-off place, to a factory. And in there was a letter. And they told Abarbanel, you're not allowed to open the letter. You have to deliver it to the guy, the owner of the factory, and he has to open up the letter. So, okay, fine. So he goes right with his messenger. And all of a sudden on the way there, he's caught up. What is he caught up with? The mitzvah in our parasha, Brit Milah. He's a Moel. They say that Abarbanel, please, can you do the Brit Milah? He says, okay, fine. He says, but I have to have a messenger of the king. I have to. He says, yeah, but we need a Moel. Fine. He does Brit Milah. And then they tell Abarbanel, listen, at the end, you just do the Brit Milah. You have to say for the Seudah, right? You have to do the Seudah, right? He was a Moel, not the Sandak, yeah? But he was a Moel. So what happens? He comes and he says, as follows. He comes and he says, he says like this. He comes and he says, right? He comes and he says like this. He says, listen carefully. He comes and he says, you know what happened? He comes and he tells his messenger, his helper, he says, you know what, do me a favor. You take it for me, right? And after you take it for me, right, I'm going to come and I'm going to greet you there. So, okay, fine. He sent him off. This was his right-hand man, right? The right-hand man gets there. He delivers a letter. The guy opens it up and he says, okay, I have to throw you in the furnace. He says, what? He says, yeah, that's what's written. He says, who's ever delivering this letter, without questions asked, you have to throw him in the furnace. And the guy was like, I don't understand what's going on. And then he went and he said, I deserve it. He says, why? He says, very simple. He says, I stole a lot of the papers from the Barbanel and I gave it to his enemies. And the enemies there in the kingdom, they went to the king and they were telling him secrets that only he was supposed to know. So the king was getting very upset. And then when they came and they told the king, but not only is he giving out secrets, he's also cheating on you and stealing. So that's what actually knocked it off. So I went against the Barbanel. The death that becomes upon him fits him. And when the Barbanel came, right, they went and they said, we threw your guy. He said, what's going on? He started trembling because he realized he was supposed to go in the fire. It was only because of the mitzvah of the Brit Milah that actually saved him. So what happened? He went back to the king. When he got back to the king, he said, what's going on? He told him the entire story. So when he went and he told him, okay, fine. But one thing, explain to me, why is it when I asked you about your properties, right, you went and you declared nothing, as if that you don't own anything. He went and he said, you know why? Nothing belongs to me. You know what belongs to me? What I give to tzedakah. What I give to tzedakah is the only money that belongs to me. Everything else, nothing. What's the proof? You're the king. I have a house. It can be worth millions. 2 seconds, you take it away from me. This is mine. It's not mine. It can be given to me and taken away in 2 seconds. What's the only thing that you can't take away? Anything that I gave to tzedakah, you cannot. That's what happened in Venezuela. You know how many people that were in Venezuela, right? I had somebody that he came to me. He told me that he was making on rents per month, $30,000 of rents.
Oh, it's better.
Now he's making less than $1,000 for the same properties, from $30,000 a month to $1,000. He moved here a few years ago, and he was crying to me because he was telling me, Rabbi, you don't understand. Before I had a maskoret, a salary of $30,000 every month. It became 1,000 from 30 to 1. What is it worth? He says, so I told him, why don't you just sell it? He says, if you sell it, it's worthless. He says, what does it help to sell? Right? They're not going to get nothing out of it. So basically, he just has to wait it out until afterwards, and then you understand. But it's incredible. But that's the problem, right? Hopefully this woman will win Maduro, right? So what happens is, right? What happens is, right? Yeah, he comes and he says, so what happens is, right? Is like this. See, he comes and he says, right? It follows. So therefore, it's very, very important just for us to remember that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he wants to test us. How's he testing us? With everything, with our entire heart, with our entire life, with everything that happens. Why? He wants to see what's inside of us. Are we serving Hashem 100% with our heart? Or are we wishy-washy? Right? Are we doing? So therefore, Hashem wants to see that. Then it comes and he says, how do we see how great is Avraham Avinu? Avraham Avinu is called Abraham Ohavi, my beloved one. Why my beloved one? He says, because the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to come and to be with him was greater than every other beracha that he had. If you think about it, Avraham Avinu always wanted mitzvot because he wanted to become closer to Hashem. He saw every single opportunity to become closer to Hashem. And that's how you explain later on also. Later on, he's in the middle of speaking to Hashem. He tells Hashem 1 minute, and he goes to do Achnasat Orchim. You say, Iowa, what's going on over here? You're speaking to Hashem, and now you're going to leave that to do Achnasat Orchim. What are you doing? The answer is that he felt the same connection speaking to Hashem by doing a mitzvah. So for him, he's going to run to do a mitzvah because that's doing the will of Hashem. He doesn't care about now what reward I'm going to get, or they're going to pat me on the back, or they're going to say what a big tzaddik I am, or they're going to start saying, no. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I only want to do mitzvot. I don't want to do anything else. I don't care about anything else. That's the only thing that I want to do my entire life. And that's exactly what, right, this week's parasha was talking about. When we're talking about, right, this of Avraham Ohavi, right, we actually say about Avraham Avinu that he was doing everything me'avah. He was doing everything from, right, with love from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Something incredible is actually also brought down where it says as follows. It says when we're talking about the entire concept, right, of love and serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu from love, right, it actually says as follows. we know that Moshe and Aaron, they did the exact same thing as well. When did they do the exact same thing as well? They did the exact same thing as well whenever it says Kasher Tziva Hashem, it means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded them, they fulfilled exactly that which was written. So they came and they fulfilled that exact mitzvah. Whatever Hashem still told them, they did it. They didn't think twice. It's going to be bad for them. They didn't think. And that was the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was told by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're going to take vengeance against Midian. You're going to kill them out, and then what's going to happen? Afterwards, you're going to die. What does Moshe Rabbeinu do? He runs to do it. How could he do it right away? Oh, take your time. Say, listen, you know what? Maybe we'll make a vote, right? We'll have one meeting and another meeting, and then we'll start asking. We'll make a board and another board, and then a board and a board, and a board and a board and a board. And then by the time you have another 20 years, right? And then what happens? You get nothing done, right? Because that's what happens, right? Huh? Yeah, you just get one after another, and nothing gets done, right? So what happens? He says, what you're supposed to do is you have to do it again. Yeah, why? Because then a person realizes that's what happens. Moshe Rabbeinu went running to do it. In the schar that he went running to do it, that's why he lived longer. Because if he would have taken his time, he would have died immediately. But the fact that he ran to do it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, that's all. Why? He wasn't thinking about himself. He was thinking about Hashem. Hashem asked me to do something, I'm going to take my time. Yeah, no, I'm going to take my time. I want to finish my tilim. I want to finish my perek of this, my schulot, my this, each person. No. I don't think about anything. I go straight. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told me. I do it right away. What's going to happen, the Rambam actually comes and he says, the same exact thing happens, right, by Yemot HaMashiach. And with this, we're going to finish something incredible. By Yemot HaMashiach, it's actually brought down in the Rambam, Hilchot Teshuvah and Hilchot Melachim, that the entire purpose of the Mashiach is for what? Think about it. Why do we want the Mashiach?
To calm everything and to put everything.
That's no reason. We think that we want to be saved. And since we want to be saved, right, we think, since we want to be saved, so what happens is that we're going to come, right, and we want that Mashiach should come. Meaning a lot of people, I heard it now. You ask them, do you want Mashiach? You want Mashiach or not? Why?
We want Mashiach.
But why? Why do you want the Mashiach? So you should know, right? Why do you want the Mashiach? You ask the question, a lot of people, they don't know what to answer you. So what do they tell you? Or whatever nonsense. But you ask them, why do you want the Mashiach? Yeah. So he says the Rambam, right? He comes and he says like this. He comes and he says, it's not, right? A lot of people come and they say, you know what we want Mashiach? We want to rule over the world. We want to win against Hamas. We want to win against our enemies. Says the Rambam. Listen carefully to the Rambam. לא נתעבו הנביאים והחכמים ימות המשיח, לא כדי שישלטו על כל העולם, ולא כדי שירדו בגויים, ולא כדי שינסו אותם העמים, ולא כדי לאכול ולשתות ולשמח. He says, we're not doing it for that reason. We're not doing it that Hashem should save us, not from this and not from that, and we're not doing it that we should win our enemies, and we're not. You know why we want the Mashiach? Because during that days, we're going to be Vaya Hashem lemelech al haaretz, vayom hahu yeh Hashem echad u'shmo echad. The name of Hashem will be all over the world. We want that the name of Hashem will be all over. We want the Kiddush Hashem. We want to be living in a time where we see Hashem's presence all over. The truth is, when you already live with Hashem, you see him all over the place. You see every single miracle that happened, as we already spoke about many, many times. The miracles, one after another, that people that they were going to be killed, and they didn't even know how they were saved. And so many people, they actually just came out with it. The Magen David Adom, they went and they said that they were coming, they were treating people, right? And they were Arabs right on their side. They said all they had to do was look at their left, start shooting, they were all dead. They continued treating them, and as if they were blinded, as if they didn't even see them. And it just continued. And they said they were right beside them. And they heard they was right there. Nothing happened. Why? The miracles that they saw was there. When you live with Hashem, you see his miracles everywhere where you go.
What
right?
When they enter, the
Magen David Adom is the like that tzala. So that tzala, when they were going, they went to a bus stop and they started treating people. And all of a sudden they realized that there were Arabs coming on the side with their guns and everything. They were starting shooting. But they continued treating the people and the Arabs didn't see them. So they went and they said all they had to do was turn to the left and see them, shoot them, they were all dead. They weren't armed, they were sitting ducks. as if that they didn't see them, as if like nothing happened. Nothing happened.
He was
Right?
driving the-
They were treating people on the street, by the bus stop. They were treating people, and nothing happened to them. Why? The miracles that happened were something incredible, right? One after another. But we see the miracles, right? But we have to just open up our eyes to the miracles. So, by the way, you should know, I'm just actually going to finish with this, something incredible, right? So somebody sent me something incredible, and they said like this. He said, do you know what the real plan of Iran was? The real plan of Iran, right, was going to be to completely destroy Israel within one day. How? Hezbollah was supposed to attack from the north. At the same time that in the Gaza, the Hamas were attacking from the south. And the West Bank was going to come, right, from the east. What happened was something incredible. He said what happened was that they were supposed to attack. And when they were going to come in, they were supposed to move as far north possible to make a line. Right? On the south, sorry. The Hezbollah were supposed to come in on the north and move into Israel to make a line in the north. He says, without realizing it, they would have taken over every single every single Air Force base. They would have taken it over, and they would have had it. By the time Israel, which is in the middle, which they would have cut off the north and the south, well, the time they realized what's going on, it would have been too late. Look how many hours it took. What happened was, he said, one miracle that happened was Hezbollah didn't attack right away.
No, Hamas made it early.
Right? They went early, Hamas, and therefore it was too early. Number two, Hamas, they lost their mission. Because all of their barbarism and all these things that happened, what happened was that they started coming and they started kidnapping and they started raping and they started doing a whole bunch of things that they didn't continue north. So they stopped right at the border. They didn't continue. They took over in 2 seconds, 22 right Moshavim. They could have continued going. Right? They were already in Ofakim, they were already in Ashur, they were already in these places. They could have just continued north. But Hashem stopped them. So even though you see the bloodshed and you see how much of a khurban and a destruction it was, you see the chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just think about it. If they're all coming from Iran, Hezbollah is also coming. Why didn't they come in? And they didn't. Because that was a miracle. And even though now when you see it, after everything that's going on, and then you continue seeing the miracles that happen one after another. And in essence, you actually say, look how HaKadosh Baruch Hu how great he is. And even though you see the judgment and the justice, the mercy is still there. And you see how merciful HaKadosh Baruch Hu is even there in the darkest of times, you still see the light. Bezrat Hashem, I just hope that Bezrat Hashem will be able to be zocheh to the light of the Mashiach coming very speedily in our days, in order to truly say, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, היום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. ברוך אדוני לעולם אמן אמן. בריך אני המלך אשר מלך הקדוש ברוך הוא. לעשות את זה לפיך ובן שלמד.